Hi, I'm Dana Flanders. I'm the instructor for Advanced Epidemiologic Methods 738R to be offered this spring semester to EPI PhD students. It is open to other PhD students, so please contact with permission. So please contact me if you are interested, and I can describe it and see if it would be a good fit for you. The course will cover a wide variety of topics in advanced epidemiologic methods. Many of these topics are very basic, and you've heard about them and been learning about them since, day one of your epi career. And you might wonder, well, why cover them again? Well, in part, it's to give you, provide an alternative or complementary, but sometimes a little bit different conceptualization of the topic. At other times, it's to draw links between topics that are seemingly different, but at some level may not be quite as different as might be thought at first. An example might be confounding, selection bias, and exchangeability. Certainly, I had some questions about the precise link between those different topics for years until I, sat down and wrote a manuscript about some of the connections between the topics. So that'd be just one example of how seemingly different topics have links, and some of those links may not be quite so obvious until they're discussed and brought out. In terms of background and prerequisites, certainly a good knowledge of probability theory, or some knowledge at least of probability theory, and statistics is required, as well as exposure to the basic concepts in epidemiology. Calculus is not required, although it will be an interesting challenge for us to discuss two of the topics that are planned without calculus, and those are maximum likelihood estimation and the approach that uses generalized estimating equations. Those topics are naturally in the wheelhouse of calculus, so I'll work hard to avoid, results and presentation that requires you to know calculus. That is, unless it turns out everyone has had calculus, but the default is that won't be happening and that we won't use calculus. Some of the other topics, I'll just briefly mention a few of the main ones. So session 7, a perspective on causal inference, what methods are precluded. That's an interesting session, I hope. We'll talk about a couple of papers that have come out maybe 4 or 5 years ago now that were quite critical of causal inference in some of the approaches. And I think it's worth touching on those papers because they did bring out some okay points. I'll be reserved in my endorsement of the papers, but we'll talk about a couple of papers that came out and raised some controversial issues. Another interesting few sessions involve instrumental variables and negative control exposures and negative control outcomes. These are favorite research topics of mine, and I look forward to discussing them in the course. Some approaches, sometimes collectively referred to as quasi-experimental, include regression discontinuity, difference in differences, and interrupted time series. And we'll spend some time discussing those approaches. And then one of the last topics is an approach to G computation, specifically the G formula. And we'll discuss a graphical and conceptual justification for that approach that I hope will complement what you may hear in some of the other courses. And it's very intuitive and conceptual, so hopefully it will be useful and again serve to supplement and complement what you've had in other courses. Okay, that's the end of my short summary. Please feel free to email me, wflande@emory.edu. If you have questions or want to see the syllabus, I'll be happy to share it with you.